Hello everyone, welcome back. As you can see, the beautiful colors are out in our country from this pic here, shared by Natalie of Rimouski, Quebec. And just as we get ready for Thanksgiving dinner, there's been a new development, a very positive development for Canada, that was communicated to us by the Chinese ambassador to Canada, pictured here, Mr. D. Wang. And the message that he gave Canadians and the timing of that message are very positive. Now, the Chinese government does not communicate by just making bombastic posts on social media. They're very careful with their communications. And they chose for their ambassador to Canada to relay this message to us at this particular time. Just as Donald Trump has escalated the trade friction between the US and China, on Friday, Trump threatened to impose an additional 100% tariff on China, another 100% tax on imports from China, throwing trade between the two countries back into a ridiculously unworkable situation. The Chinese have immediately retaliated with their own measures against the United States, and the Chinese have not backed down with their total boycott of US soybean imports. The friction between the United States and China is escalating. But while that is happening, China chose to relay this message to Canada through their ambassador. China will remove canola tariffs on Canadian imports if Canada scraps EV levies. Their ambassador specifically said this, and I quote, "If Canada removes the unilateral unjustified tariffs on Chinese products, China will also reciprocate accordingly," Wang Di said through a translator in an exclusive interview with CTV Question Period aired Sunday. And if EV tariffs are removed, then China will remove tariffs on relevant products of Canada. Now, for those of you who don't know the details, Canada has had a 100% tariff on the import of EVs from China since last October, when we followed the United States' lead in this matter. It was a move aimed at protecting domestic manufacturing and national security, according to the federal government at the time. Canada also has 25% tariffs in place on Chinese steel and aluminum. China has since levied tariffs of its own on Canadian agriculture, including notably on canola products, with a 100% tariff on Canadian canola oil and a 75.8% tariff on canola seed. This has effectively devastated our canola farming industry, as our major export market was China. And with these high numbers, 100% and 75.8%, it's very unlikely that China will import any canola from Canada, and they'll just pivot and import it from someone else in the world. Now, Mr. Wang went on to say, "The question you have raised touches the crux of the problems in our trade relations. China's tariffs on Canadian agricultural products are a countermeasure against the EV tariffs and the unilateral unjustified tariffs on China's steel and aluminum products. If Canada is ready to correct this practice, China will also respond accordingly." Now, let me just reinforce how important this is, because here in North America, we're used to the news cycle that we absorb, and it's every 15 minutes or so that the moron down south tweets something or posts something on social media. And politics and governing here seems to be done just through the internet, just spewing out whatever you want whenever you feel like it, never knowing what's real or what's not real, what's a threat and what's not a threat, whether tariffs will be imposed and then pulled back, whether someone just changed their mind. The Chinese don't really communicate like that. The Chinese are very, very careful and deliberate with all their actions. There is no one ambassador or one spokesman that just blurts something out on his own. Their message is carefully crafted. Everyone speaks from the same playbook. And if the Chinese ambassador to Canada says this in our media, it means that that is the official Chinese position. You won't have just another random Chinese official log on to his X account and then post something else that contradicts this guy. And so now, as they are retaliating and escalating with the United States, they've extended an olive branch to Canada. They've made their position public, and now the ball is in our court. Now remember that there's been negotiations going on behind closed doors for some time now. This article from September 9th, the headline reads, "Easing Chinese EV tariffs is on the table," Federal Agriculture Minister says, and some premiers have called on Ottawa to lift the duties on EV imports from China as the retaliatory measures have hurt the canola industry. So Canadian officials have been discussing this with China for some time now, and China has always left the door open a crack because these tariffs they've imposed on canola, they've called them a temporary measure while they study whether Canada is using unfair practices in our canola production. They've been studying this for some time, and they've extended their study period as they've been negotiating with us. If you look at the history of the past decades of China-Canada relationship, you will see that in trade we have achieved fruitful outcomes. And these outcomes are a result of mutual respect and win-win cooperation and mutual benefit. And what I want to say is that the trade disputes between China and Canada are not caused by China, he added. In China, we say, the one who tied the knot should be the one who unties it. So China is not the one to blame in this whole process. And with that statement, he's clearly putting the ball in our court. He's told us, if you remove the EV tariffs and you remove the steel and aluminum tariffs, we'll remove the countermeasures we've placed on you. So now it's really up to our Prime Minister to decide what to do with input from all the premiers and all the stakeholders. So I want to ask you, what do you think we should do? Should we remove the 100% tax on the import of Chinese vehicles that we have in place now? Should we do that so that the Chinese remove their tariffs on our canola exports? Should we do that right away, or should we try and negotiate maybe a even bigger deal, removing the tariffs on EVs, but having a stipulation that China needs to start manufacturing some of their EVs in Canada? Should we complicate the negotiations with something like that? There could be some people associated with the auto industry in Ontario that would want that, because removing the tariffs completely on Chinese EVs, it might be great for Canadian consumers, because right away we would have access to much lower priced, potentially even higher quality vehicles. But for every one of those vehicles that we might decide to buy, that would mean potentially one less vehicle manufactured in North America that we would buy. And that's really the reason that we imposed the tariffs on Chinese EVs. Nothing to do with unfair trade practices or the typical reasons that governments use when they impose tariffs. Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canada, saying we posed a national security threat to the United States. We said that the Chinese were using unfair trade practices with their EVs, so we put a tariff on them. They retaliated and said that we use unfair trade practices in how we grow our canola. That's what governments always say. But basically, you impose those big tariffs to keep that product out of your country, to protect your own industry. So the correct answer may not be to remove the tariffs totally. It may be to reduce them significantly and then enter into discussions with China to try and make some sort of a deal of manufacturing those vehicles in Canada. Let me know what you think. I'll read you what Pierre Poilievre's position is, reported in this article. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has said he opposes lifting the tariffs on Chinese EVs. He wants to keep the 100% tariffs on the import of Chinese EVs, though he's called on the Liberals to do more to support the farmers and get China to drop its levies on canola. That's his position. Don't drop the tariffs. You keep those tariffs on China. Make them pay, but you get them to drop their tariffs on us. In the meantime, you better support those farmers. It's all the Liberals' fault. The Liberals can't support the farmers. The Liberals can't support our auto industry. The Liberals can't stop those Chinese from putting tariffs on us. Canada's broken. It's the Liberals' fault. We need to have a remove the Chinese tariffs election now. I'm glad we don't have him negotiating this file for us right now. But again, I ask you, what's your position? Leave a comment in the comment section and let's get a discussion going here. The takeaway is that China is ready to do a deal with Canada. China is definitely extending an olive branch here. This is the way they do it. They let you know what their position is. If they did not want to do a deal with us, they would be announcing an increase in retaliatory measures just as easily. So their position is, hey, the ball's in your court. You remove these tariffs and we'll remove those tariffs. And the timing of the message couldn't be more critical. Right after the escalation with the United States, right before or during the harvest of canola, if we get a deal done here, guaranteed our farmers will have a market to sell their canola. There won't be any bailouts required. But for the United States, those poor soybean farmers, China has closed the door. They're going to be devastated, and they're going to have to rely on a government bailout. Thanks for watching, everyone. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful time with your family or your loved ones or whoever you share Thanksgiving with. Have a great long weekend, everyone, and I will catch you all on the next one.